Okay. I believe I'm live. Hello, if anyone is on here right now. Oh, okay, there we go. We're getting viewers. Alrighty. I see people coming in. All right. I can start talking a little bit about myself, introducing myself for folks that are on here. Hello, everyone. My name is Fullamusu Bangura. I am a poet originally from Washington, D.C. I currently reside in Chicago, Illinois now. And I've been writing for a while, um, for as long as I can remember. So I've been a journaler for a very long time. Probably starting in like sixth grade, I started journaling. But I think my relationship to poetry started when I was in middle school, and I had this eighth grade teacher, Miss Latney, who was amazing. And I don't really remember why she made us do it. I think it might have been for Black History Month, but she had us memorize poems by Black authors. So when I was in maybe like sixth or seventh grade, I memorized "Still I Rise" by Maya Angelou, and she made us perform it in front of the entire class. So I had to memorize the entire poem. I performed it, and I think that's kind of where my love for performing poetry started. So I'm really excited and grateful to be here in this space. I'm really happy that Sundress Publications put together this Poets and Pajamas series. It's really cool because this was originally supposed to be a virtual thing anyway, but you know, COVID happened. But it's still really cool that this is a space that we get to have and get to share together. Also, really cool because a lot of my friends haven't seen me read before, so I'm very excited to just have the opportunity to begin to share my poems with my homies. So thank you all so much for joining. Um, I don't know what else to say. I can say a little bit more about like my history as a writer. So I went to undergrad at Rutgers. I probably have some Rutgers folks on this call right now. Um, so I was an English undergrad student there. I took some creative writing classes. Um, and I was also a part of this really amazing collective called Verbal Mayhem Poetry. So I got to perform a lot there. I made a lot of friends there, a lot of poet friends that I still um, hold near and dear to my heart today. And then from Rutgers, did some things with AmeriCorps, and I went to Northwestern and got a master's in English literature. So now I'm here reading my poems for the Poets in Pajamas series, and very, very excited to be sharing this space with you all. So I'm gonna give it maybe a few more minutes and a minute or two and see if anybody else joins us, and then we can begin the reading. But I'm really excited for the poems that I have today. I have a bunch of them. They're not too long, but um, a lot of them actually have been published recently, which is really exciting. So in the past few months, I've gotten a few of these works published, which I'm really hype about. And then one of these poems hasn't been published yet, and I don't think I've read it before. So I am very, very excited to read this poem. I am just going to go ahead and get started. So this first poem is called "I'm So Tired." I don't want to. I don't want to start yet. I want to wait for more people to come in. I feel like I feel like it's too early to start. And I have a feeling. Never mind. Never mind. I'm gonna just wait. I can talk about the things that I like and things that I enjoy. So I really like um, mangoes. I really like plantains. I really enjoy fantasy novels. I particularly enjoy a few anime shows that I'm getting into, like Hunter and Hunter, which I thought was pronounced Hunter X Hunter, but that's not how it's pronounced, um, and other things of that sort. These are just a few of the things that I like, and I'm hoping to incorporate some more of the things that I've like gotten really interested in during quarantine, like baking into my poetry more. So we will see. But okay, for real, this time I will get started. So this first poem is called I'm So Tired of Almost Crying on the Train. The thing no one tells you about crying on public transportation is that you have to hold your sobs between sail breaths of urine. A man probably sits across from you, threatening to kill your mama, your whole lineage, on phonum. Something pretty about tears landing on your ripped scarf while you cross over the Chicago River. Clear your eyes and look up. See advertisements turn you symptom. An unfilled prescription bottle. There's a study for that. Am I bipolar or broke? Maybe broken. There's no study for that. See yourself as a little red dot on the moving map, drowning in rainbows. The loop is the most suffocating series of circles I have ever wept in. Ask myself if a friend, or worse, coworker, sees me, what will I blame my tears on? The wind. Always blame the wind. That poem is actually one of my, I think it's one of, if not the first poem that was ever published, which was like a really incredible feeling for me. But it was published by Peach Mag, which is an incredible magazine that publishes like some of the most like innovative, like creative, mind blowing, like fiction and poetry pieces that I've ever read. So shout out to Peach for really like giving me, an opportunity. Getting published is really, really hard. I don't know if a lot of folks that are here are writers or aren't writers, but getting published is pretty difficult. So that was like a really big deal for me to have my first publication and for it to be a poem that like was so special to me. So the second poem is called Every Song Nina Simone Has Covered. Every song Nina Simone has covered goes harder than the original. The liner notes of my heart all thank Miss Simone for making every single song by white people infinitely better. I mean, imagine what she has accomplished with a home in New Orleans, built velvet cathedral, harem of Marie Laveau's pressed against the walls, candles encircling a wide-toothed comb and hair grease, Nina summoning me into being. Imagine what she has managed to do with the wind, a sweeter cry than being on the other side of a bet with the Grim Reaper, craving something, anything beyond death. A friend argued that Ne me quitte pas sounded better in German, said the heartache hit harder, but what is a stronger pain than Nina's razored French pressed against violin strings, stretched to the desperate point of break, bound fingers pleading with piano, please, please, don't leave me. In some pictures, Nina Simone looks like my mother, wide mouth and sloping cheekbones, eyes low and elsewhere. My mom loves to remind us what a good girl she used to be. Won the conduct award at the convent and everything until she met my father. On the most killer days, she does not call me darling or sweetheart, only by my real name, as she soothes my hair and tells me it will be all right. Presses praying hands against my scalp. My Lord, the look of love in her eyes. She reminds me how beautiful second births can be. Like Nina's voice, cracked through moonlight and melody, wakes me up at sunrise to pray, bends at the knees and tells me that the sun is always here to guide me home. I love the ground on where they stand and all the lives they've lived in between, brooking laundry in the river and praying in it, running from the devil and marrying him, leaving him behind and finding the power, the power, the power, the power, the power. That poem is actually made up of a few lines from different Nina Simone songs, but Nina Simone is someone who has been really influential in my writing, influential in my politics, influential in like all of the things that I believe in. I think Nina Simone is just like an advocate for um, just standing up and making your voice heard, but also like creating spaces when folks won't let you in. So Nina Simone was a classical artist and was classically trained, but because she was a black artist, people did not want to put her in that category. So because of that, she kind of like revolutionized this new form or new style of music. Um, and I just think she's incredible. And I think that she's covered a lot of songs by white people, and I think they're always better. And I don't know. You can fight me on it, but you'll probably lose. This next poem is called Fred Hampton at Lake Michigan. Um, I'll just read the poem. I'll just let the title speak for itself. Fred Hampton at Lake Michigan. I think Fred Hampton did his best thinking near Lake Mich. Tucked fumbling speeches beneath the sand and skipped stones on the waves when his nerves crept up. Pocketed bottles of lake water with hopes of christening his son's forehead in a west side basement. Rode the train east to sit and think. Maybe Fred Hampton's future shone in the green line windows, grand city outlined in white, a fight on every street corner, veined, lead straight to the heart. I think his fate lie in front of him in that watery reflection like prophecy. I heard he broke the apartment's lease that night and borrowed the ocean instead. So I wrote that poem. I actually have been editing this poem a lot. It started as like a three-piece poem where it focused on different folks kind of interacting with Lake Michigan. But I think throughout that, the person that stood out to me the most was Fred Hampton. And it feels very relevant because of the movie that's coming out. But I have feelings about Fred Hampton's legacy and how we remember Fred Hampton. Um, and I just think that there's just so much more to be told about our revolutionaries being, regular people, everyday people. Like Fred Hampton was very, very young when he was murdered by the Chicago Police Department, and I think um, it's important to think about our revolutionaries or the people that we see as leaders as people too, which is why I wrote that poem. So this next poem is called Wide Tooth, and I can share a lot more about this poem. I also want to mention that there's a question section at the end of this, so I'll read two more poems, and after this, you'll have the chance to ask me questions. But this next poem, there's a lot going on with it. So I'll read it and then I can talk a little bit more about it towards the end. But this poem is called Wide Tooth. I am still learning how to get all the kinks out. I give myself grace. These tools, placed in my hands only just yesterday, how sometimes they slip when I tend to the props. Handmade rows I crafted, tiny equators of earth I mapped out. Today, I learned myself a planet again. Tonight, I plant my knees into the ground and commit body, untangle my vines. My mother's tool of choice bore more teeth, cut me. Instead, I'll choose the comb with more breathing room, breath of more lung, my northern star. I leave home for therapy, pulling my roots apart and still grieving weeds. And when I say I am kinky, I mean I am still learning all the ways my roots create each other. When my hairstylist tells me to cut the split ends now, I obey. She uses a car metaphor I can't really remember, but it sticks. I claim the skies for my stalks of flowers, raise them, find a root to cling to, and deem it lucky. My faith is a seed. My poem Wide Tooth is it's a shape poem, so it's actually in the shape of a wide tooth comb, which is very important to me as someone with 4C hair. But more context to the poem, or I guess more information about specifically like the importance of wide tooth combs in my life. I grew up using like the very, very fine tooth combs, which are great when you're parting your hair or where your hair is like not this texture, where it's more fine. But when it is this texture, it gets really difficult um, to to manage with a fine tooth comb because the hair will rip with the comb. So it took a very long time for me to learn that you actually should use wide tooth combs with hair my texture. But my life has been changed ever since, and my hair's a lot healthier. But there's more to that poem. But this last poem is called um, My Mother Sings the National Anthem. My family is from Sierra Leone. My mom and my dad were both born there. I was born here in the States. But this poem is particularly important to me just because I really believe in giving people their flowers while they're here. And my mom is a person that's absolutely deserving of those flowers because of everything that she went through as an immigrant in the States. So, my mother sings the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see? It's 5 a.m. and the babysitter watches my children. I reset the Metro bus route before dawn and float to work. By 2 years' time, my child walks to school and you cut her short. How do you say no culture is lost through the length of a proudly hailed name? My seed grows in my belly, Tyler House, then 14th Street. A child made up of carpet burned legs, blue magic, and okra, and over the years, my sickly thing bloomed spectacular. Amidst the smog and humid air and rots, I tell you, it is a miracle you did not kill us both. Where are your monuments to us? There is no perilous fight untethered to a green card. In my passport, I soften my eyes for the camera's flash. On your dollars, your saints look away. In this country, your language mingles community into something so fraught and strained. Two M's refusing to touch, a distance eternal. Why? In my language, when children ask why, we say, because why has a long tail. In yours, you ask, why this response? I have not yet learned how to say, Not all needs an answer. Let it go. There is no freedom in isolation, no bravery in swallowed tears. My years here feel like germs in an incubator sometimes, multiplying themselves before I can catch my breath. Most days, my pain breaks anthem form. The stanzas cannot contain themselves. I know sabi the words themselves. When my hand touches my heart, it is to heal pain the only way I know. When I kneel, it is on my mother's old prayer mat, face to sun, hand to God. When I stand, it is because my back bends no other way. Believe me, in a few years, you couldn't tell me or the Statue of Liberty apart. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So that concludes my poem. Um, Now you all have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat. The questions will come up and we will get the chance to talk and I'll get the chance to answer those questions. Um, but in the meantime, I can talk specifically about a few poems as I wait for those questions to come up. We can talk about Wide Tooth. So Wide Tooth is a shape poem, like I mentioned. Um, I started writing shape poems, or for folks that maybe don't know, shape poems are poems that are literally in the shape of an object. So you'll see shape poems that are in the shape of lamps or candlesticks and things like that. And typically the form or not the form, the content will match the shape itself. So for White Tooth, I wrote about a white tooth poem. It looks like a white tooth poem in the shape. So there's some long lines and then there's some short lines that kind of mimic um, the, I don't know what to call it, the base of the poem. Um, and I really like writing shape poems because it forces you to really like think about how you're using space. So space is something that I like to play with a lot in my poetry, but with shape poems specifically, like you have to really create the shape for yourself, but also force yourself to stay within the lines of the shape that you're creating. So for my process, I'm actually not, I haven't heard a lot of other poets talk about their process of writing shape poems, but I typically will come up with the shape in my head first. So like I'm interested in like seeing if I can write a poem in the shape of a white tooth comb, and from there the content kind of came. Um, and it's they're really difficult, especially for like me. I get to I want to be really precise about where the lines end because I want it to be like very clean on the page. But with the whole process, it's a lot of like having to be really intentional about your words. So there's some words that you'll put in as placeholders, and you'll be like, "This works," but then it'll be too long on the page, and you have to figure out if this word is actually necessary or if there's something else that you're trying to say that could be a shorter word. So shape poems are really fun for me. They're really challenging, and like I said, I really enjoy playing with space on the page. So as another example, my Nina Simone page. If you've ever listened to Nina Simone's music, you'll know that she has a lot of like pauses within her music. So Centerman is like maybe like a 12-minute long song, but there are like maybe like 4-minute intervals where it'll just be instruments. And Nina Simone just kind of like, or her band just playing the music. And to me, that's just like such an important thing to have in music is just like pauses and breaks. But I think Nina Simone does that so like masterfully. It always feels like it's building upon something. It's never too like it doesn't feel like the pauses are you're just kind of waiting for the song to be over. It actually feels like they're intentional and they're building into some like really amazing chorus or whatever she gives us. So that is something that I try to incorporate within the poem. So on the page, there's a lot of space. A lot of the lines are very spaced out. um, like far below each other, just because I try to incorporate that same like energy of like letting, you know, letting the art breathe on the page or like in the air, whatever that looks like. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's see. I can also talk a little bit about I'm so tired of almost crying on the train, just because it's a poem that talks a lot about with other people, um, because a lot of people have said it's very relatable. But I think there's something really powerful about crying on public transportation. I've done it a few times. I've worked a lot of really hard jobs. I'm also a Scorpio, so I have a lot of emotions. But with that, I just feel like there's something really vulnerable about crying on the train. I think there's often, other people that are in your space. And I'm a person that I can't really cry that easily in front of other people. So something has to hit me really hard for me to want to cry on the train. Um, but I've had conversations with people where we talk about the really cute moments that happen when you're having conversations on the train. So, or cute moments that come from like being emotional on the train, or cute conversations that come from that. So, people that are like, yeah, I've gotten really emotional, but then someone came up and asked me if I was okay. And we had a long conversation that came from that. Um, but all that to say, it's not the most enjoyable experience to put yourself out like that for the world to see on the train. So it's completely, for me, it was important for me to talk about how hard it is to really cry on the train. As good as it feels sometimes, it's not the most enjoyable experience when you think about other people um, seeing you. But I also think there's just something really beautiful about like the vulnerability of it. Like getting to that point where it's like, okay, I'm just kind of okay with other people um, seeing me in this state. I think that's pretty powerful. So, yes. And then for the poem about my mom, there is a line in there. I can read the stanza again, but the stanza is most days my pain breaks anthem form. The stanzas cannot contain themselves. I know sabi the words themselves. So that last line, I know sabi the words themselves, that's a line that's in Creole. That's the language that my parents speak. So Creole is actually, um, it's spelled Krio, not to be confused with Haitian Creole. But Creole is considered technically a dialect because it is a combination of English. There's some French words in there. There's some Arabic words in there. And there's some Spanish words in there. But Creole is kind of a combination of all of those languages. Um, I think it should be considered personally should be considered a language. I take issue with um, the way that we think about dialects versus language and what's considered creolized because there's a lot of like organic, words that came out of Creole that came out of the combination of those things. I think there's a lot of like organic things that it feels like it's a reduction to just call it a creolized language or a pidginized language. But I included that line in there. I know sabi de words themselves, which translates to I don't know the words. I don't even know the words. Um, and that line in there is specifically about the national anthem. So thinking about this whole idea of what it means to be American um, and how we kind of, as a country, cling to like patriotism and cling to these ideas of um, just this like American narrative that is reductive in a lot of ways. Um, but I just, it doesn't, to me, like when I think about my mom and all of the things that she's done and the impact that she's made as an individual, like in this country, it feels very ridiculous to then like think that my mom should know like the words to the national anthem or should know like all of these like cries of patriotism um, when that's not what it means to like actually be a part of this country to me. So um, I wrote that poem because I absolutely reject the idea of the American dream, and I think that that's something that my parents, had to believe in when they came to this country. Like they had to believe when they immigrated here from Sierra Leone, they had to believe that there is, a better opportunity if you work really hard and all of the things that they've been taught. But I do think that that's not realistic in a lot of ways for some folks. So in writing that poem, I just kind of wanted to challenge the idea of what it means to be an American, challenge the idea of what it actually means to be somebody that like has invested a lot into this country. Like my mom is a nurse, a really hardworking nurse, and my mom has been doing a lot because she works in a particular hospital and unit that is affected by COVID. Um, so just thinking about like my mom is absolutely the backbone of this country, and the thought that just because my mom doesn't know the words to the national anthem, she's any less, not even American, but any less like deserving of the freedoms of being on this land, this stolen land, is yeah, it's just something that I think I want to refute. Um, but if anyone doesn't have any questions, I can talk a little bit about just things that I'm excited about. Again, I've talked a little bit about my process and just like different types of poetry that I enjoy writing. But generally, I think one of my biggest goals um, that has felt like very important to me recently has just been the idea that I want to give people their flowers. I just think there are so many people that are deserving of being celebrated that don't get the celebrations that they deserve for various reasons. Um, I just kind of want, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be a person that waits until we like lose someone or waits until we can no longer actually tell the person the impact they've had on our lives. So that's something that I've tried to do in my writing. So writing poems to people is something that feels very important to me. So I'll write like a lot of different poems to like individuals in my life. I have poems to my little cousins, poems to my mom, my dad, but also like figures that I've had no interaction with that are important to me. So I have like 3 poems to Celine Dion. Um, I have several poems that I want to write to Evelyn Champagne King and Patrice Rushen that I haven't written yet. Um, but I also think those people deserve their flowers. And I think a part of the folks that I choose and prioritize to give my flowers to through my poetry are the people that I know um, didn't get the love that they deserve or um, were made invisible for a lot of different reasons or just aren't seen as spectacular, which I think is ridiculous in a lot of ways. I think there's so many beautiful things and so many spectacular things about the things that we consider or the people that we consider to be ordinary or regular or whatever. I don't believe that. So I try to really like make sure that I'm celebrating those folks, those individuals, those instances, wherever within my writing. I will keep monitoring the chat. see if any other questions pop up. I can also talk about some of my favorite writers or writers that have influenced me. So I've been really impacted pretty obviously by the work of Toni Morrison. I think it's hard to not be a Black writer and not be impacted by Toni Morrison. It also just feels like especially important to say, given that her birthday was just a few days ago. Um, I love Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston is somebody that's like really pushed me to like be very upfront with my language. I think that there is an idea sometimes that poetry should be very fluffy, and poetry should have like a lot of like beautiful language. And there are a lot of poems that have those things that are incredible. But I also think that there is the idea that poetry should be those things and that's it. And I don't think that's true. Um, and I think Hurston is somebody that like really relied on like just getting the language out there. I think part of it is like her being an anthropologist and the way that she was trained, but also just like her genuine love and respect for like Black language and wanting to protect that. Um, and I have learned so much from Zora Neale Hurston and just kind of like the impact of the work that she has given us. And poets, there are a lot of poets that I can name. I'm really a fan of like Tracy K. Smith. I'm a fan of like Jenna Smith, Safia El Hilo. Oh, there's so many. Hanif Abdurrahim. Uh, I like Muriel Rukeyser. She's awesome. Um, oh, there's so many great poets that I can name. So many great writers that I can name. But I think something that I've gained from all of those writers and all of those individuals is just one is like a reminder that I should like continue reading and like you can never read enough books. There will always be like a million books that I will want to buy that I can't buy because I don't have enough space on my bookshelf. Um, but just a reminder to like continue reading because there's so many poets that do or writers in general that do so many different things with their work that I could learn so much from. But I think I've just also learned like to keep writing from those folks and keep experimenting and keep trying new things. A lot of the writers that I really look up to, like I think, um, try different things like within their work. So maybe they're a poet that was very experimental within their poetry, but also these are artists or creatives or whatever that have like tried different mediums um, and dabble in a bunch of different things. So I think about like poets that are also fiction writers or poets that write essays or poets that like make music. Um, I have learned a lot about just like not just sticking to one type of thing and pigeonholing yourself in that box, but also just trying different things out and really gaining from the different things that you're trying and incorporating that into your work because there's a lot that can be gained from just trying and experimenting and doing new things. I am currently trying to work on a book. It feels very weird to say that out loud, but I have a manuscript that I'm working on that I'm excited about. It's my first manuscript, um, kind of along the same themes of what I talked about, the things that are very important to me in my writing and wanting to give people their flowers. Um, so that's something that I'm hoping to do within the next few, I don't know actually. It's quarantine and it's COVID. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but it's been really nice. I've actually been like been able to like sit and work on my writing a little more over the past few weeks than I have had the energy to over the past few months. And I also have a close friend that's helping out with just making sure that we are both supporting each other in the writing process. Um, because having the energy to write is very hard. I'm a person who I like to wait until I'm struck with inspiration. It doesn't actually work like that. Like, I think it's a myth that I'm telling myself that the writing process only starts when you wait and you're like struck with inspiration. I don't think that's actually true. I think I'm just in denial. Um, but it's helpful to have somebody who is working with you and just like helping you stay accountable to yourself and your work, but also just like a person that you just like love and respect their writing as well. Um, so I think that has been something that has been really important to my writing process is having a community of folks. So not just writing in isolation, but having people that I feel like I can share my work with, people that give really honest feedback. But I think with honest feedback, it's hard sometimes. You're like, I want you to be honest, but not too honest, or I don't really trust you. I don't know you too well. But the beauty with like the writing friends that I have is I feel like I know them really well. We have a really good relationship and we trust each other. So when we're able to critique each other's writing, it doesn't feel like it's coming from a bad place ever. It's always like, I genuinely want your writing to be better. Um, so those are just that's one thing that's been really helping me is just having a friend that or having friends where we can like constantly talk about writing. And I also think that during this time it's been hard. During this time, meaning COVID, it's been really hard because I think the interactions that we have with each other have changed a lot. But it's been pretty cool for me actually because I think um, I've been in spaces like writing spaces, poetry spaces that have been virtual spaces that I otherwise would not have gotten the chance to be a part of. So like joining digital calls with folks that are like on the West Coast and that are like Bay Area writers. Like that's been something I've been able to do, or I've been able to see like writers talks from like writers that I look up to and love, like N.K. Jameson and Sadia Hartman, um, and just being able to like log on to Zoom or Google Chat or whatever, Google Hangout, and see these writers that otherwise you just have to wait for them to come to a bookstore and hope that you know aren't busy at that time to see them. So I'm really grateful that I've been given the opportunity, you know, with all of the things that are still going on during COVID, I've still been given a chance to um, write and be in community with other writers and just learn from other folks. So that's been a blessing amidst all this mess. But I am going to take some time to thank you all once again for joining. It was a lot of fun reading these poems. Um, if you are interested in reading any of these poems by yourself, the poems that are published, you can find them on my website. That's Fullamusing. So it's Full, or I can just type into the chat, or I can spell it out loud and type it into the chat. It's FULLAMUSINGS.com. Fullamusings.com. I'll just go ahead and type that into the chat. But the poems that are published you can find there. And I have a few other poems that will be published sometime soon that are coming out soon that I'm really excited about. So thank you all once again so much for joining. Thank you to Sundress Publications for putting together this Poets in Pajamas reading series. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy getting to read with you all. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much.